So today we're actually just gathering first time in a while, Raj and Dana together for a panel talk. And we're going to discuss about Biraaj's solo exhibition, Aimless Desires, that's live on Backyard Ghost. We can check out the show together later. It's on backyardghost.org. Um, and Biraaj has been actively working from Chicago, New York, and now back in India. And she had her major solo show in India in 2019. Um, and I, when I looked at I mean, it was online, but when I looked at the paintings, I just kind of became very speechless and started reacting with my whole body. Like I was like, oh wow, like this is kind of like something that I have to ponder on and just digest because it was just so um, heavily nuanced, emotional, but super smart body of work that it was kind of like new to me because I've been seeing her work since many years ago, and her new body of work was kind of really touching, and I just wanted to work with her and have this opportunity to talk about her work. So I'm just gonna let Biraj to say hi to everybody who's zooming in, and then I'm gonna move on to Dana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Annette, for making this happen, and Dana for agreeing to do this, wanting to talk about my work. I'm super grateful and happy that we're doing this.
So Dana, I have seen you for a long time, but I didn't get to work with you a lot when I first met you at SAIC. But uh, when I met you again at Columbia, it was such like an eye-opening discussion that we had in every studio visit. And the reason I invited you to this talk today was, I mean, I couldn't think of a better person to talk about Viraj's paintings with, because whenever we talk about paintings or in general, we hit always the same point of like not conceptually, but like the physicality of the painting and the emotional level of the painting, stuff like that. So our awesome artist slash professor Dana Degiulio is super generous to join us today for this talk. Dana, do you want to say hi first before you open things?
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me, both of you. I've known Biraaj a little for a very long time, and it's so rad to see this new work, and I'm super moved by it and excited by it and psyched to talk with you both about it. If people are tuning in and haven't like looked yet at the show, like we know that it's in like the world is flat Zoom land, but like it looks smashing, and you could almost sort of feel yourself into it. So give it a try, even though it's sort of like automatically frustrating to not be able to smell it. And thanks to you, Annette, for asking me to do this. I'm happy about it. I wrote a small thing this morning about this once Biraaj brought to my attention that I was responsible for actually asking you questions and not just smiling into the internet. It does refer to specific gestures that are in the show. So if anyone's like, what is she talking about? It's there, I hope. But this is also clearly a subjective interpretation of what's there. Annette too has written a curator's text, which is online at the beginning of the show, which is also really lovely. And I think everyone should read that too. This is just me as me. Biraaj, go ahead and dispute it. Hopefully there are questions buried inside of it, and there are two explicit ones at the end. So if you can't find them, or if you're like, let's not speak about any of that, then we don't have to. it's a really kind of peculiar advantage to have you with us while we're addressing these things that so emphatically aren't you. So I think that's kind of why it's a sort of strange, funny, you've stayed at the scene of the crime or something. You're just kind of like hanging around with like a bag of money and we can sort of ask you why you did all this. But okay, here's the text. Thanks in advance for your patience, everybody. Okay, I'm just gonna read it off the paper. Work I love, I think about you doing it and I wish you didn't have to. With any object, the question is what happened? Why are there gloves on a 2x4? Possible answers, there are no hands to protect. The hands that put the gloves on have their own gloves, or they don't need them anymore. The 2x4s are trying to hide that they don't have fingers, instead show this by not filling up the space where the thumbs should be. Something is missing, there is too much, or the gloves are drying out. Other possible questions are, who did this? Or how could you? And how could you is rhetorical and you're lonely enough with it already. This ruthless sympathy, it doesn't hurt as much if you're good at it. The gag was being unable to gauge how much danger Buster Keaton was actually in. The pulleys and clamps and springs having been set by experts in advance, a 2-ton prop house falling, just a facade, flat. Safe spot clearly marked so he could do it again, take after take. It's pretty romantic to think you dragged all these out of a mine you were trapped in for weeks, the record of some danger resolved into an almost picture, an almost joke. A little pinprick of light, either small or far, probably both, depending on how deep, but it doesn't matter because it's work. You did this at work. And to ask what is the work of the work is not my business unless you say so. Because we aren't with these, we can't gauge enough to see if we should open our arms or recoil a little. Both, probably, they want us to, because they're not images, and I think part of the longing is in just how far. We have to try to speak them a little closer to everyone. So the big ones are the size of a queen-size mattress. The little ones you could fit your head into, or it's a bed from far. I haven't seen these, but I saw some of it all last year here in New York, and what's changed, except for the entire ground on which we all figure. They feel like they smell, like sex or sleep or grief or boredom, used like that, but not used up. There's another take, and they feel more like tools than props, to take apart, I think. Substitutes, but only as a gag, a joke about impossibility, a blanket always partial to haul over the whole, to keep the conditions constant at one prick of light. This is the task. I think they're tasks. Further, mud dries into dirt. You want to try to wash these off, to get more light in, but dark is what they are, and dark is relative and uninflected, except in it you know by touching, and I've tried in my mind to scrub at these to see them better, but they just shine because they're already clean. And this is it, and take after take, it just keeps on beginning. Buster Keaton had his neck broken when a torrent of water fell on him in the water tower scene in Sherlock Jr., but he didn't realize it until years later. Water broke his neck. So I guess the questions are, Biraaj, where are you, and is it working? Where are you?
That was amazing. Okay, Biraaj.
That was great. Thank you, Dana. That was, I feel like it articulated many, many things that I find that happen while I'm working, when the body kind of moves and this kind of tactile thing becomes hard and soft and gets kind of built and then dismantled and collapses almost. So I would say that's where I am, kind of in the middle of that kind of collapse.
And like collapse as procedure, as like that you could become like habituated to and an expert in staging and restaging this kind of collapse. It's like you're okay, like you're not trapped in a mine, And I think that there's something really moving to me in taking on deliberately the task of this kind of like relative jeopardy, existential or philosophical or emotional, kind of like over and over, And I'm like, oh, she's really doing it. She kind of keeps like squirming around in that bed-size object. And I but you can sort of like feel the strain of having to like fill and refill this absence, and I don't know as far as like information goes what these are about, and I'm really relieved to not know. I'm like, I don't know, like there's a longing in me or a lack in my relation to the object where I can't like find the spot on the map to tell me what happened. But it's like, I recognize it enough, you know, it's like in the dark, I have to know by touch too. And I like being in the dark in relation to the coordinates to sort of like set up the conditions for this work, you know. Yeah, the word almost, I think, is really important. You know, the collapse almost, like, because like you are getting out and you are able to sort of resolve it into an almost picture. Like it can still be like a replete thing in the world, like that doesn't sort of like need you or like a language apparatus to hold it up. Like I put some of these on my Instagram yesterday, and people who don't know you or even me very well were just like, oh, these are beautiful, these are so intense, they're making me so sad, they seem so heavy. It's like, yeah, like how do you know that, you know? But like they hold it, which I think is like super beautiful, because it's, you know, midnight where you are and you're half a world away, and like, you know, a lot of these people you haven't met, and it's just a real, the work I think is really emphatic about the fact that it's an object, that it's like this like unsayable material thing, which I think is like it's like beautiful, but it's also a position, and I think a really like critical and demanding one, and especially in relation to the sort of like disembodied Cartesian flat world that we find ourselves in right now.
I mean, just because you brought up the material, like it's a thing. It becomes an object as a painting, but usually goes on the wall. And the way Biraaj kind of moves around the paint and like does this all, borrowing her word, like choreographed almost, like this expression of just like moving the paint's physical body around with either brush or palette knife or whatever, anything, the tools that you incorporate with, everything from the paint to the tools. It just becomes like a whole process of repair that is not necessarily like fixing things, but more to, uh, uh, as Dana mentioned, it's like learning. It's like studying the sensual um, study of sensations. Almost like it's like you have to just feel it. Just have to navigate with your body as a painter, as a viewer. And then because the paint is so physical, the material itself is so physical on the surface, then there's like the speed, the weight, or like the directions. The directions are very, the shape of directions are very specific to me. The way you compose those weights on weights and shapes on shapes. So I wanted to ask a little bit about how you approach those, or what Dana sees on those, kind of like just the material physicality.
Um, I think I mean, I liked when Dana, you posted on Instagram and you called it a kind of mattress-sized painting. I really like that, because I find that often when I'm working, um, it is about paint and about what happens on the surface, but also I am kind of constantly thinking about it also um, in relationship to my own body, that, you know, something is kind of head-sized or torso-sized or much larger than me, and that kind of what that does. And so kind of the paint becomes in a way like a skin that's kind of being built up, you know, through me, something that, you know, I'm thinking and feeling um, through this thing. But also um, I find that I kind of I keep finding myself kind of building and then sort of negating and taking things off as well in equal kind of equal motion. And um, that kind of excavation, or that kind of, it also becomes like a kind of record keeping, maybe, in a way, of of whatever it is that I'm thinking, whether it's you know, coming from a failure within the painting, or whether it's completely precise and choreographed, or something is kind of built um, structures are built to then be interrupted. So I would say that all those qualities kind of are important to me when it comes to the material aspect. I don't know if that um, really answered what you were asking.
Did it, Annette, did that answer it? I'm thinking about this too, but did it answer it?
I think, yeah. I mean, I just keep going back to the like, physicality of the paint, and the feeling I get. I mean, all those stuff that just Biraaj talked about is like heavy in there, but also like just a whole as a whole picture or as an object of a painting itself. It's very. I haven't seen the paintings in person. In person, I wish I really did, and it's almost there's one sense missing in my head to understand like the 200% of the painting. Um, but just by looking at them on my screen, they looked kind of crumpled, like it's all they're super beautiful, but they also have their own struggle in as a painting almost like, and they're trying to restore the balance or like crumple physical um, dignity or something like they're very they're very elegant, and the colors, which I mean, colors are all mystery to us. It's like we understand color with like memory. Like color is always associated with something, and that's how we interpret colors. And Viraj's colors in those paintings are really relying on not like a prevalent prejudices of the colors. It's more of like very personal memory colors. But I wouldn't probably understand the whole 100% of it, but it almost feels like it comes directly from unconscious of the artist. But I don't know where it's going, but like yeah, as a painting, the physicality of the painting, or as the identity of painting, or something like that. I think it's really beautiful because it keeps trying to restore something that still looks perfect, or it's perfectly balanced in the end, or something like that.
Yeah, I I am so relieved that I'm not you, as you know, and that I'm unable to retrace the like set of gestures that were required to like make all this stuff happen on the surface. And I think that to part of Annette's point, and to what you said, Biraaj, too, it's like there's the state change is like super moving to me. You can feel the like wet to dry, the like mud to dirtness of it, and like I don't know. I was just running down my own road right now for a second, but like or wandering, but like I don't know. Last year I had 2 beers and decided to like drive a borrowed car through the woods at night, and the car was fine, everybody was fine, there was no one around, it was very late, and I got back to where I was staying, and I woke up the next morning and my shoes were just super caked in mud, but they were dry, so it was dirt. And I made a lot of decisions. I took a lot of turns. It was dark. I was really kind of going too fast in a place I didn't recognize. But the only record of it are these like fucked up shoes, that I had to really kind of like knock the dirt off with. And that's kind of what the paintings feel like to me. Like, I don't know what happened to like make this aggregate, this kind of material aggregate happen in front of me. I'm super interested in you finding things and in like in the repetition, I guess, like the sort of like deliberate and melancholic restaging of like similar gestural habits. It's like that sort of beautiful plant behind you. It's that kind of like peripatetic elbow move. Like you're not not swinging, you're searching, but like every time you touch something, you're kind of aware that it could go away. I was just watching those old films of Alberto Burri when he's making his work and he's got the torch in one hand and the water in the other hand, just like making the mark and putting it out and making the mark and putting it out. And it doesn't erase it, it redacts it, you know? And I think that I don't need to know, you don't need to tell me, you don't need to tell me anything. The criteria for these, for you, because they're not pictorial. It seems like it's like endurance based or something. It's like you do it for as long as you need to until it holds what you need it to hold, or until it's the kind of record you need it to be, and then you're out. Because you kind of know there'll be another one, and that's sort of what I meant too about like the thing keeps persistently beginning, you know. And I have no sense, even from the work I saw here last year, that like, now she's done. It's like no, like it's like everything seems like it requires a next thing, you know. You're taking a step, and it's like this task or this, you know, it's like you make a thing, and that's just like the tool to make the next one or something. Even though I'm guessing that they sort of happen in studio with relative simultaneity, especially the small ones. But it's like they're building a way forward or something. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I feel that definitely. I feel that quite a bit. That as I'm working, and in the last few months I've been painting. In the last year, I would say I've been painting quite a bit, and I definitely feel that there are moments when I feel like, am I just making this exact same painting over and over? You know, because I find myself kind of I catch myself in moments where I feel like, oh, this is exactly that I did earlier, and yet I think somehow I've found that it always kind of the painting kind of wrestles back, and I have found myself kind of always in situations where there is a I don't know if interruption is the right word, or there's a kind of a point of a crisis, or a point of kind of not exactly pause, but one that completely kind of flips the choreography that I may have planned, and I forget what the earlier point was that we said. What did we start with when I but yeah.
Anything that you're telling us is already like super generous, because it's like it's inside of the work, you know. And it's like I think that it's all of this I think is your choice about like what you want to tell us about what happened here, I guess. You know. Yeah, but I feel like I really like the like clear, I don't know, the like reactivity versus the choreography. Like something happens, like gravity does its work, a thing falls, like the thing hits the surface and it's not purple, it's orange. You know, I mean, like that kind of stuff, like how alert and responsive you have to be despite the choreography. It's like I like I'm cautious about all these words, but like I like the restaging of risk in that way. Just like you could lose it, it could fall apart, even if you're like completely habituated to the set of moves and responses that you have. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's only so many things you can do in a car, you know, and it's like, I think that the practice doesn't include things like you're not like suddenly you're not burning it or hitting it with a fire extinguisher. It's like, no, like there's like an actual like vocabulary, there's a gestural material vocabulary here that's like pretty set, and we can read the work through that, including the sculptural gestures, right? Like I feel like it's interesting in that little email you sent this morning about like whatever, or last night, sculpture and painting. It's like I personally don't use disciplinary criteria for like thinking about these too hard. They all seem like tasks or gestures or like temporary precarities made whole or made set. Yeah, so I'm like, oh, I wonder if you do think about sculpture. Like what on earth is sculpture? Like especially when they're like so contingent or so interested in the wall, you know.
Yeah.
And in gravity in the same way that the paint is.
Yeah, I think the sculptures for me do come from they do come directly from the paintings and from a kind of a drawing that I think is inherent in both these things for me.
Yeah, totally.
And and yeah, I do think about it in both my painting work and sculpture, that there is a kind of great importance of weight, and I think gravity is a great word, because it kind of always kind of becomes about how how deeply something is falling, and then how it can kind of float. You know,
Beautiful. Yeah.
um, and yeah, yeah.
Which is great, because like I don't know. I like that you can make these heavy things, or that you expect, or even like believe that you can get these heavy things to float. You know, like that's the work part. It's like that's kind of like the blind part and the work part. Just like, I don't know, like if I like do this right, like, you know, it isn't a feather, it's a fucking bed. And like I can make it float. If I just keep doing it, like they're gonna start to hover a little bit at least. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so crazy that they just I just saw the Amy Silman show here in New York, and some of those big monsters just feel so heavy. Like they're not supposed to float. They're supposed to fall, you know? And I'm like, like it's not magic what you're doing. It's just like a different kind of like faith set or something, or set of questions, but like what these things do together. And it's like nothing goofy and false. You're not like trying to make it go up at the end, you know, because like this isn't something that you can see or something that you can plan. You can stage it, but it's like, that's kind of what I meant about Buster Keaton. It's like, no, he was really good at that. You know, like it seems like an accident, or it seems like a miracle of luck. It seems like a message even, but like it's work. I don't know. I think that's rad.
The sculptures, um, can I actually read a paragraph from Louis Vuitton sculpture? Okay, so she said, my sculpture allows me to re-experience the fear, to give it a physicality, so I am able to heck away at it. Fear becomes a manageable reality. Sculpture allows me to re-experience the past, to see the past in its objective, realistic proportion. Fear is a passive state. The goal is to be active and take control. The move is from the passive to the active. If the past is not negated in the present, you do not live. You go through the emotions like a zombie, and life passes you by. Since the fears of the past were connected with the functions of the body, they reappear through the body. For me, sculpture is the body. The body is my sculpture.
Where is this from?
A Louis Bourgeois book, and I, I don't know. I love the way she talked about the fear as like a passive thing, and the past uh, reliving, but like it the reality of the sculpture is kind of like manageable reality. You know, it's like it's a new one, but that comes out of your past body memory, uh, and you actually it's more active in a way than uh, the initial experience or initial perceive, perceiving things. Like it's a different state, as Dana discussed. It's like a state change. So yeah. But also the material that you choose for the sculptures are it's very connected to um, your painting language. It's very honest and uh, not so much staged. I would say it doesn't feel theatrical to me. Like even though you bring in all those props like gloves or like those personal objects that you have collected, it doesn't necessarily feel too staged for me. It feels really like Louis said, it's dealing with your own past fear and like sort of like taking control again and create this like a active space. And they're kind of big, like they're body size. They're uh, bigger than a lot of your paintings, and give them like a space to live again as something active. And um, I don't know. Do you feel difference between like the space within the painting and the space you create to and around your sculpture, or it's kind of the same thing as Dana?
I think they kind of they have similar kind of codes embedded in them, and I think what's what might be happening within the painting, I think the sculptures kind of definitely help me do in within the space, this kind of interruption, or it almost becoming a question. I'm interested in that, it kind of asking rather than declaring itself. And similarly to the paintings, I find that it for me also becomes a kind of record keeping in a way, because these objects are either extremely personal things that I have kind of saved over the years, or they are, uh, a material that's discarded and that I've found, or it's often kind of construction related material that um, is comes from a very specific kind of domestic repair um, genre of hardware, that I find that these things together kind of, once they come together, they kind of lose their initial meaning, their inherent meanings, but then they become this kind of new fiction, new um, kind of keeper of my private self, but also a kind of newer fiction that I'm allowed to make and add and subtract from. Um,
There was we had a conversation in intro this semester about abstraction, and one of the students said, "Wait, do people like put clues in their paintings that like other people can read?" I'm like, yes, they do. I think they do. I just like love it. Like, I love what you said, Biraaj. It's like, yeah, like we all get the fiction. We all get to have the same fiction, and you can construct these things as containers, as keepers. It's a beautiful word for like stuff from your own life that like I can't anecdotally locate in relation to myself, certainly, or even to you. But it's like, this is now the 2x4 that holds these gloves. Like, this is the plank that holds the bike chain. Like, you know what the bike chain is. And like, but for me, it gets to be this new fictive, that's the drawing part, this new fictive, like thinking, desiring machine, that I totally get to play with. That you're like, you're setting up these hard facts, I guess, these hard things from your life for me to play with, so you can play with them too, which is why I think it's sort of important that we say a lot of stuff back to you, so it isn't just like, tell me about the toy you built to like hold your intense personal shit. It's like, no, like I want to be able to, I want you to know that like we can play with these like without knowing, and that's part of the like generosity, and this word is insane, but like play in the work. That word is gross, but like it's you're trying to play with very hard, sharp things, and I appreciate it. And things that have been kind of like worn down by the world, that like hold time and the material experience of having been an object of use.
right.
Right. And now becoming an object. I mean, something that like I want to defend in art always is like its futility, is its like embrace of impossibility, is like, this bike chain is not going to move a bike ever again, but it's going to like move this desiring machine, or move this record, or like move this keeper of stuff, which is like super rad. I don't know, I just wanted to like say like, yes, keeper. I didn't mean to interrupt you. um, yeah, I don't know.
Also wanted to ask
Yeah.
about um, the titles, because I mean, I think as painters, they always struggle with. I mean, I personally do struggle with titling my paintings, even though it's so clear in my inside of my body. I guess it's not clear enough in my head when and when it comes to like titling thing, because it's like putting a period and a sentence, or comma at least. It's something that it's not definition of it, but it gives for, especially for a lot of viewers who didn't make the painting, it's one of the gateways to enter the painting and or understand the painting. And when I read your titles, it's so open yet very specific, and very poetic at the same time. So I was wondering where and how you come up with those ideas or titles.
The titles, I would say, sometimes, often I have a kind of sense of um, where something might be going, and it kind of, as I'm working, which means, you know, thinking and feeling as I work towards this thing, it kind of starts to form a clearer kind of uh, the the materiality of the work kind of starts to build a clearer um, uh, clearer kind of conceptual voice, I guess, for me. And I think a little bit of that helps in the titles for me. And also, I find them to be sometimes, you know, I don't want them to be kind of descriptive or tell you what it is, but um, often they are a kind of a clue or an anecdote that is embedded in the painting. It is, you know, maybe fully the painting, or it's just a kind of sliver of the painting, but it is an important kind of code within the painting. And I think that's sometimes where it comes from.
Yeah, I like them as, I feel you too, Annette, like not wanting to punctuate or like lead or describe or whatever, with the language apparatus attendant to the work. But I like code or like path, even like this is like a little tiny bit of illumination of the path you might be on, or at least like evidence of the path that you were on, Biraaj, in the making of it. You know, it might not necessarily be the path that I'm on, which I think is kind of great. Just because it does feel separate. It's like you're using the language, I think, as materially as you're using the paint, but like with a little bit more indifference, you know. Like I like that the like little flag of the title just like isn't covering the whole object. It just feels like a little flag sticking out of the top. Before we get too stuck in language, which feels to me like a very, very separate situation, the little ones. Can you talk about are the little ones pictures? Are they small or far? Like what I love, I don't know, the like scale up, scale down is so intense.
Um,
You don't have to, sorry.
I'm just trying to, you know, find my route to the answer. But I think, you know, maybe it's important to say this right now, that my first ever kind of formal painting class was with Dana in Chicago in 2011. And something that you kind of often pointed out and talked about was, you know, how we were kind of our physicality with this object, and, you know, that kind of relationship. And I think that's definitely stayed with me. And I think it's a very kind of active part of how I think about painting, that, you know, something is notebook sized, or something is from floor to ceiling, something is just, you know, going to fit within my torso, like in my chest. That kind of relationship, I think, becomes very important for me when I'm working. And um, so for a long time, I was doing these kind of head-sized small paintings. Omar might remember them from grad school. And um, so I find that that scale kind of makes it, when I'm actually working, I find myself most able to kind of be immersed in it as a physical thing, and also um, in these recent paintings, I've been kind of thinking about, um, not directly, but in some ways, this kind of idea of the nocturnal landscape, and I also feel like the paintings often have a specific kind of palette, and I almost think about them as the paintings wearing a kind of mourner's veil over
Yes,
them.
beautiful, beautiful, yeah.
They're grieving, but they're kind of covering themselves, but they're also grieving openly. They're doing both those things, and so that scale and that the kind of palette that I was working with, it kind of was um, developed a little bit over time, but I found myself kind of answering more questions, and um, bringing up more complexities for myself in that scale. Um, and also a lot of the painting that I enjoy looking at, which is sometimes, it's Indian miniature painting or early Renaissance Italian painting, things like that. There's this incredible kind of um, portrayal of distance, of something happening, something so specific happening so close to you, and then this kind of equally important kind of gorgeousness far away that is um, completely distant, and I think those things kind of allow for, it makes so much room for that idea of uncertainty and fiction, and um, whatever it means to be distant, whether it's within the painting or psychologically. So um, yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question about scale, but I think all those things I connect with making things that are um, kind of specific to my own body in size.
That's a gorgeous answer. Like, I don't know. That's like a super generous thing to say. Yeah, thanks for saying all that. I don't know. That's a lovely observation about the Indian miniatures and other things, the little Italian Renaissance, the Sienese paintings. Yeah, I don't know. I've never thought about it that way, Biraaj, but it's a really nice way to say that. The like specific thing presented to you in the immediate foreground is somewhere. It's being situated in a place, like where there's like distance and ground, and like, the like little Sasetta paintings where there's like a tree with a broken branch, like after, like, which is probably the main event instead of like the thing, presented to you in the beginning, or in the beginning, in the foreground. The beginning of the read, I guess. I don't know. I love everything you just said. It's awesome. That's all. I just wanted to tack on to that. Like,
Yeah, the way you mentioned about like psychological distance is just really, really okay. That's a lot. Because I guess the a lot of people say the way I paint, the reason I paint big is to have this physical experience and this more bodily experience, and just to mimic the whatever the body memory holds. It has to be like this scale to experience that. But on the other hand, your painting is trying to tell that experience with like a extended distance, because I guess what you just said comes to me as like it's more complex within the small scale, and then when it's like a massive landscape, like nocturnal landscape, like because it holds like all these loose landscape, or like the geometry that's kind of like going on. It really creates the psychological distance of like, what am I looking? And is it something way too deep that is not indescribable in a large scale? You know, like something that is not describable in a large scale, but it's actually the content is like way too big. To be, you know, because it could be bothered by the scale, you know, like if it's like,
Yeah. But I do actually find when the painting is much larger, I'm interested in that scale. I think the middle zone where it's almost kind of mirroring me or kind of parallel to me, I find that kind of harder and more I guess I'm a little resistant to that. But when it's much larger than me, I find that quite interesting as a space to navigate, because it um, um, the kind of excavation or this kind of scabbing that happens um, is um, it works on a different kind of um, I don't know what the right word is, but there is a kind of difficulty that gets set up and kind of is um, mm, I don't know if I have the right words for it, but maybe it'll come to me.
yeah,
But um, yeah, I guess I meant that there's a kind of possibility to create a structure and a, a choreography and then interrupt it on a much larger scale, which I am very much interested in.
right.
Yeah, and yeah, that's lovely. Sorry, Annette, go ahead.
It's more direct physical relationship in terms of like processing the painting. Um, and I don't know, I make smaller paintings, which I rarely do because for me, like it becomes, for me, it's hard to control my head, not interrupting myself. But I think I think your paintings don't look interrupted by your head at all within this small scale, which I'm very, very fascinated by, because whenever I try to make smaller paintings, it becomes heady paintings, and which I really don't enjoy, and I can't let myself live with it. So, but the small paintings of yours that I saw are just, it's not that at all. And um, but I guess the relationship between you and your bigger scale work is kind of like it has some more of that actual physical challenges that you might agree to have to have in terms of process making paintings, and that should be there. Like I really, I wish I am in front of those two different scales of paintings, so I can actually feel that. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing with all that. I like everything that was said. It's like the big ones. I feel like you're showing us you're inside it, you know, and we can see like the whole field or the whole pool, you know, and I think the like the intensity of like deciding to go inside something the same size kind of over and over. I mean, you have to go to sleep every night, so I guess one could do that. But they play the big and small play object window really in a really like interesting, playful, almost funny way. You know, like the miniatures and the scene he's painting, like those are pictures, and they're pictures from far because of the distance, you know. And there's nothing far or pictorial even for me about the big ones. You know, it's like here is the whole pool, which is like super rad to see. I like excavation. That's a good. Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's so neat. I don't know. Maybe all I want to say is like is the word frankness. Is that they're both modes, all modes, the sculptures too, are so materially frank. you know, and if I have a question about what happened, it's like my second question to myself is like, what did the artist's body do? You know, like not what was she thinking or what was up or what part of the world was she in, but like what did the body have to do this? And they're the like scraping and the effacing and the excavation and the like redaction and the little ones is so present, like in this like little, it's not a snow globe, but it's like in a like head size manageable way. It's like these are the steps, or like here's the map for this kind of territory, you know, and they kind of like flip back and forth in I think a really kind of exciting way. I wish you could see the work in person too, and that you need your whole senses. I noticed last year. I felt like, I remember Biraaj, I was kind of like pacing around the room, and I think you're kind of like, are you focusing? But I was trying to get it all, and you kind of can't because there are so many like, the big parts seem really like crude and hard and stupid, but they're actually just like sensitive and soft, and the small parts are actually quite sharp, you know. So like they do lots of like flipping and I think semantic little jokes with expectation and like how these materials usually occur in the world. It's rad. I wouldn't be talking so much if I wasn't into it, so I'll just stop. Yeah.
And we're here for that. Um, do you want to little talk a little bit more about the language, Dana? Or is it too much?
Not unless Biraaj wants to. I mean, I don't know. When people ask me questions, I'm always like, wow, thanks. And then I'm like, it's so rude to ask an artist a question. Sorry.
Oh, so
Sorry.
um,
It's vampiric. Sorry.
so okay. I mean, I think we've discussed a lot, and I mean, not really discussed. We like talked about those paintings because language is so limited, and we are doing our best to describe this sensual experience. Um, what do you think about overly emotional or almost like the volatile, like intentionally volatile looking, or does it ever come to you as a question?
Um, I think I'm definitely interested not just in my own work, but in kind of the psychological space or the temperature of a work of art. You know, if and I like the word volatile. I don't mind that. You know, that kind of um, um, I do think about the kind of the position it takes in terms of the sound it's making or the temperature it's at or the tone it's a work of art is uh, adopting. I think that is very much part of making something, especially in my case where it's it's very physical and it's very kind of it's a handmade thing, um, and but they're also, I think, quite um, there's definitely a sense of logic or a sense of um, you know, I guess I'm interested in uncertainty as a subject, but I think they're quite decisive in their making, and um, so yeah, I wouldn't um, exactly call myself a very like overly emotional maker, but I think uh, the sensitivity or the mood or the emotional state that this object embodies is important, and it's all kind of spaces on the scale are valid for me, you know,
Totally.
whether it's you know, sentimental or serious or raging, you know, all those things I think are part of the same um, they're part of a kind of vocabulary that I'm working with, I would say.
I mean, I just asked the question because I think it's such, actually, it's really, really hard thing to do as an abstract painter. Uh, Far from just like kind of like making like violent looking painting or like angry or I'm gonna reveal everything kind of painter. Um, your gestures are very uh, quiet. I mean, quiet and loud at the same time, but there are not like exploding everywhere. It's kind of somber, and but when I look at the painting, the word volatile um, just comes into my head, very uh, which is a very I think it's a beautiful thing to have uh, as like the somber, nuanced, dark, heavy looking, like subtle lights. But it almost feels like it could like evaporate and like because it's so it's still very I guess the precariousness or the vulnerable, like it's not confined or anything. Like it's all playing within the air. Like nothing is ever like a solid object or landscape at the same time. So it's, and I think those moments really evoke this emotional or volatile states. And I think mastered it. I don't know. Um, Okay, well, anything you wanted to mention further, Dana, Biraj, either of you?
I just want to stick something on to what you guys just said, like to Barrage, like being interested in uncertainty as a subject is like really right, I think, for this, or that's what it feels like from far. It's like you're not losing your shit. Like Aimless Desires is the title of the show. It's beforehand. It's the plan and the structure, the aimlessness. You know, you didn't just like produce this work and you're like, oh, I guess that was kind of aimless. It's like, no, no, no. Like you're setting yourself up, I think, for to.
Those are Annette's words that she
But
put
I think
together.
your work told me to.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that. I like that as a title because I think that, I mean, the thought of having an aim or like an end goal for desire as though it could be satisfied by like reaching a single goal is like not a thing. You know, that's the like always beginning part of it for me, for sure. It's like, yeah, you have to sleep almost every day. You have to eat almost every day. There's a lot of other things you need almost every day. You know, it's like it's not like you're going to exhaust it. Like this doesn't seem to me like an entropic project. It seems like it grows, which is like super rad. I don't know. I just wanted to also like say how happy it is, how happy it is, how nice it is. I don't know. The like the point about grieving openly in a veil is like so wonderful, you know, because I think that I'm trying. I really like the way you write, Annette, and I like the way you talk about painting. And I'm trying extra hard to like be contrary a little bit. Just like emotion, paintings don't have emotion. What are you talking about? Like the viewer has emotion. Like the painting is just a thing, you know. But I just for the sake of like trying to put some pressure on these because I think they can take it. You know, I'm like, wow, volatility, or like how does volatility work at night? Or you know, I live by a park and it's so crazy that like in when night falls, the adults get quiet but the teenagers stay loud, you know, and like a bunch of like bodies kind of hollering and crashing into each other in the dark is a totally different way of being or way of responding to conditions, you know. And like that these all are like choices and positions that you can do both. Barrage I think is really sort of rad. Like it doesn't seem to me to have, I like that you're saying sentimental too as a thing or like as form or like letting it take form in a particular way that's like legible in the syntax you're building, which is like really interesting to me too. Like I think that to try to be like super butch and hardcore and like avoid sentimentality is to avoid so much of the like pleasure and frankness in painting. It's like we're making the world flat. Like we're making little rectilinear excerpts. Like it's pretty sentimental, like in terms of like wanting it to hold and like attaching and over attaching to the kind of keepers they are. That's all I got to say, I think. But, sorry, Annette.
Really beautiful way to sum up uh, rectangle, rectangle little world that we're creating in the end.
We chose this. We all chose this. It's not.
Nobody told us to do this. Okay, so I wanted to. What do you think? Should we go over the exhibition really quick first, or should we just open to the question and leave the opportunities to see the exhibition on each individual? I think that the latter might be better, right? Because we just like talked so much about the work, and I almost feel like we've been looking at the work the whole time, which is good because it's hard. Okay, so now we're gonna open to the guests. If anybody has any questions or comments or things that you wanted to say to Biraaj or Dana, this would be your chance.
Yeah, I mean, one more time, it seems frustrating to look at an exhibition online, but it really, it's possible. So like, give it a good shot. Like, it's worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange thing for me to for screen, for to talk about the paintings through a screen and kind of trying to break them down on a screen, but it's the way to go now. So
Okay, good. So this is our website or gallery or and on the first page, her solo show is up, and you can enter. One image is up, and then you can enter the full exhibition. And this exhibition is includes her recent paintings and sculptures.
and
And
these are all they're from made within the last year. Um, a lot of the work on in this group was in a solo show in that opened in March in India in Calcutta at Experimenter Gallery. And there's a few paintings that are a little more recent, made after during the pandemic in August, September, I think.
Yeah, Figure Ground is just this wonderful choreographed tangle. Rad.
it is just moving with the air, like it's the things that are there is deeply engaged within the whole air breathing. You can click on individual little paintings also and see a little larger version. Um,
That one's awesome. Like, it's possible to separate one out. It's kind of not, but it's awesome.
um, and then there are installation shots with sculptures. Yeah, and this was an image that the experimenter gallery in India, she had this whole show. So yeah, this is a full exhibition that is up now. If you want to spend more time with each painting, please feel free to do so. Okay, so all right. Well, on that note, if we don't have more questions, I would like to thank all of you who are here today and listen to our these painters blabbing about paintings and I think it was really great and thank you for your generosity and beautiful thoughts and writings and everything, Dana. It was such I think it was such a wonderful time. I feel really great. Like I haven't really talked this intense about um, somebody's painting in a while. And, um, far from like it was kind of like really super open, which I really enjoyed. And thank you so much. Congratulations again, Biraaj, on your solo show. And your paintings are on fire. And I hope to see you in person and hope to see all these paintings in person soon, very soon. Any last comments that you would like to say?
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Annette, for putting this together, and Dana for kind of agreeing to do this. And it kind of happened so spontaneously, but it's always a pleasure to hear you talk about any painting. And I feel extra special that it's mine. So thank you so much.
Dana?
No,
Thank you.
thanks. Oh, sorry. No,
I see some old friends and Chicago people, and thank you so much, everyone who's here.